I'm gonna, when you get a second too, if you can give me the power to share my screen, Kyle.
Yeah.
Thank you. I see Michelle.
I think Rose needs to be a panelist as well.
Yep, we're working on it.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't see her in here, Michelle.
Yeah, because she got the same,
I'm here.
she got the same link I did, which was just to join.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you, Rose. You're
Okay,
good.
yeah, I don't know. It's not letting me turn
It's
on the
okay.
video part, so
It's okay.
yeah.
We know you're beautiful.
Oh, yes. And I spent all that time preparing.
I know.
That's funny. All right, so it looks like I can maybe share my screen now. So let me do that. No, maybe.
Oh, wait a minute. It's blank. Yeah,
You can mute yourself, Rose.
All right, well, having technical difficulties sharing my screen. So Kyle, I'm just gonna quickly email you the presentation for the beach fee.
I made you host. You want to try that?
Yeah, I still am running into issues with permissions, unfortunately.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so let me send this over. Okay, I just sent that over. All right, so are we recording right now, Kyle?
We are,
Okay.
yes.
All right. Okay, I'm gonna call the November 4th meeting of the Park and Rec Commission to order at 7:03 p.m. My name is Chris Barrett. I'm currently serving as the chair of the town's Park and Recreation Commission. We are virtual tonight, so what I'm gonna do is ask everybody that's on the call to mute themselves if they can. And if you would like to address the commission, whether or not you're a commissioner or staff or a resident, I'm going to ask if you could just use the raise your hand feature of the Zoom meeting. Or you can also ask through the Q&A functionality a question, and also through the chat. So 3 ways. If you raise your hand, I will call on you and we'll unmute you and you can address the commission, and you can share put your audio and video on at that point. So with that said, our first item on the agenda is open forum. Do we have anybody here for open forum? If you are here for open forum, just raise your hand. And I do see one person. I will allow Jessica to talk. Hi, Jessica. You're able to, you should be able to address the commission at this point.
Hi. Okay, wait. So this is my first time I've ever attended.
Sure.
So open forum, is this for the parks fees part? Or is this different?
Say that one more time.
So this is my first time I've ever attended. When you say open forum, is that for that first 5 minutes of discussing the parks fees?
Well, we actually have a specific agenda item for that. So
Okay.
this is more for anything that's not on the agenda currently that the residents would like to bring up to the commission. So
Then disregard, I'm waiting for that.
no problem. All right, no problem. I appreciate you attending this evening. Okay. I don't see anybody else for open forum, so we'll roll right into our first item on the agenda, which is a discussion of beach fees. Kyle, would you be so kind to share your screen and bring up that presentation, please? Thank you. Okay. So this is just going to be a quick couple-minute slideshow, just providing some high-level data that the department has collected regarding beach usage and some of the financials associated with our waterfront operations. If we could go to the next slide, please. Okay. Historically, what the department does when it's manning the beaches in the summertime is it writes down when non-residents come to the beach, and inspects that they have a permit, if they've purchased a season pass, or they collect the daily fee. And the numbers that we have in front of us are just going back a few summers, including last summer, just to show at a high level a breakdown of the number of non-residents that are coming and using our beaches, both at Edwards Beach and Forge Pond Beach. You'll see that the numbers are decreasing over time. That could be due to a number of different things. Maybe it's seasonal weather variations. It could have been some COVID related issues. It could have been that last year we did increase the non-resident beach fee. So maybe that turned some people off, as well as the daily fee went from $5 to $10. So those numbers are as you see them. Let's go on to the next slide. As part of trying to prepare a little bit for looking at the possibility of implementing a fee for residents, we asked the department to collect not just non-residents that were coming to the beach, but residents as well. So for a period in July, we have that data that shows that roughly on a 2-to-1 ratio, residents outpace the visits from non-residents at our town beaches. Now, this is for a very short period of time, but at least gives us some visibility into what that usage pattern is going to be. And we intend to continue to collect this data going forward, so we have it at a much more historical level. We could go on to the next slide. Another step in having a discussion about implementing a fee for residents to use the beaches was to reach out to neighboring communities and see what they were charging for their waterfront operations. As you can see in this chart, there are a number of different pricing schemes that some of the towns use. Westford's very simple. We just offer a season pass for non-residents, and it's currently set at $90. It's quite a bit lower than what other communities charge for non-resident season passes. And we are making that pass available for up to 5 people. As you can see at the bottom of the screen, different communities charge or call a family either 5 non-residents, or it could be 6, and have some options to include or to handle larger parties. We could move to the next slide, please. We also looked at the day rate. So this is if you are just going to come and use the beach on a drop-in basis. Again, Westford doesn't currently charge for a resident to use the beach. We charge $10. Again, we doubled that fee last summer. And you can see here in this table what some of the neighboring communities are charging for the use of their waterfront operations on a drop-in basis. Additionally, some of these communities are charging for parking. At this time, parking at the Westford beaches is also free. Next slide. Okay, so this is a little bit, maybe, I don't know, hopefully people can see that. Is that showing up well enough on people's screens to see the detail? Yes, seeing some heads nod. Okay. Okay, so this is just a high level of breakdown for our waterfront operations financials. We have our revenues. Largely, that's from the passes and either the daily or the seasonal passes. We do get some money from group usage. So you have a couple of different programs that are run during the summer that pay Westford to use the beaches. We use most of that revenue to offset the cost of lifeguards for those groups. We don't actually provide lifeguards for the beaches on a daily basis, but when these larger groups come in, we do staff lifeguards for them. Our expenses is largely due to our labor cost. So we do hire teenagers to man the beaches, so to speak, or staff the beaches, so to speak. They're responsible for collecting fees from the non-residents, trash pickup, that sort of thing. They also staff the concessions stands that we have at both beaches. And when we take the revenues and the expenses, clearly our revenues do not exceed our expenses for our waterfront operations. To add to that problem, we have the department has to handle what we call our indirect costs and our management and admin costs. So these are the costs associated with the staff that work at the recreation department on a yearly basis. And then the costs associated with benefits, the costs associated with the charges that the department has to pay for things like IT support, accounting support, things of that nature. So when we roll those into the picture, the picture becomes increasingly poor from a financial perspective. We're losing, if you will, 30,000 plus a year on our waterfront operations. As everybody on the call probably is aware, the town has faced some budget challenges over the last year, potentially going into this year and years in the future. One of the things that the town leadership implemented last year was the budget task force, which did a deep dive on all areas of town government. And one of the recommendations that the budget task force had for recreation was for us to do a good analysis of some of our operations and see, where are we lacking in, efficiencies, where are there potentially extra revenue opportunities. Historically, the Park and Recreation Department runs very, very well, but we have usually a little subsidy that is required to sort of balance our budget that comes from our general fund. And it would be great if that didn't have to happen. So the Recreation Commission is doing its best to conduct that analysis, and this is just one part of a very much larger effort. If we could go to the next slide, please. So this slide isn't saying anything is being set in stone here. It's just for conversation starters. It's just to say, hey, here are some possible options for implementing a fee. It could be as simple as implementing a $5 daily beach fee for residents. We could increase the daily rate for non-residents. Currently, again, it's $10. We could up it to 12 for the weekends. We could increase the non-resident season pass to $100. Again, we just did raise it from 75 to 90 last year. And we could potentially implement a season pass for residents as well, or a combination of all those different options. Next slide, please. Now, there are a number of different challenges with implementing fees. These are just a couple high-level ones that I wanted to just note for the commission and for the members of the public that were watching this evening. One of the biggest challenges is the way that we currently operate our beach fee collection process, which we have our attendants at the parking areas. So if we were to implement a fee for residents, those parking areas also serve as the parking areas for two of our playgrounds. So it would be very difficult for us to sort of ascertain if a person was coming in to use the playground and not the beach, or vice versa. At Edwards, we could probably work around this because Edwards, the beach area is fenced in. We can simply move the beach fee collection area closer to where the beach shack is. But at Forge, there is no fence, so it would be very hard to control access to the beach. The other aspect of this was, if we were going to implement the fee, we wanted to have an honest conversation about, well, what was that really doing? What sort of value are we providing for that fee? As the public is probably aware, we do not have lifeguards at our beaches. We do have the beach attendants that are supposed to be there for, as I mentioned earlier in this presentation, manning concessions, fee collection, trash pickup. But they're not there to protect the public if a drowning event occurred or anything like that. So, one could argue, why are we charging at all? But the fact is that this is an area of our operations that is costly, and we are looking at ways to try to reduce that cost. And this is just one of those conversations that we'd like to have with the public to get their input. And I want to thank everybody who made time this evening to join the call, hear this quick presentation, and give your thoughts to the committee. So with that, I'm going to take any comments or questions from commissioners, and then we can hear from our members of the public that are attending. So commissioners, if you have any questions, please raise your hand and we'll let you address the commission. Brock, go ahead.
Yeah, Chris, thanks for putting together this proposal. I definitely think that, we have to seriously consider that $35,000 a year deficit. And that you've come up with some, good suggestions as far as the proposed rate changes that we could potentially do for both residents and non-residents. And I think that, although a lifeguard may not be at these beaches, there is still a public service that we are offering by having that, readily available for, our residents to enjoy, instead of paying, going next door to the next town over and paying anywhere, as we saw, $10 to $20 for a day pass. So I think we should definitely seriously consider, a resident fee and a change to the non-residence fees as we look at, trying to be financially conscious of the costs associated to our beaches. So that's all I wanted to say.
Great. Thank you, Brock. Appreciate the comments. Mike?
Yeah, I just want to, for the residents that haven't been here as long as I have, I moved here in 1985, and for all the people sitting in on this meeting, when we moved here in 85, to use the beaches, you had to buy beach tags. They were actually real beach tags that came on, that you could put on your wrist or onto something. I don't remember the exact number. I think at the time it was either $15 or $20 per person, with either a $75 or $100 maximum for a family. And that was 40 years ago that we paid for that. But that money not only, in fact, I don't even know if it closed any deficit, but it did allow for us to pay for full-time lifeguards at both beaches. So that's just some historical information going back 40 years ago, when we definitely did pay for the beach use then. So I just want to bring that information to the forum.
Oh, Mike, thank you very much for that. Appreciate it. Anything else from the commission? All right, Mike, I'm going to lower your hand here. All right, from our members of the public, we have Erica. I've allowed you to unmute, so go ahead, and if you want to ask a question or make a statement, Erica, you're free to do so.
Actually, this is her husband, Rob Michael.
All right, very good.
Could you bring up that slide that showed the expenses, the revenue and expenses? Is that possible?
I believe it is. Kyle, could you do that for us, please? It's right there.
Yeah, that one. So if for some reason, let's say hypothetically, we just shut down Edwards Beach, would you say that those two line items, management, admin, personal services, and indirect costs would go to zero?
No, no. So those are folks like Michelle, who is our director of Park and Recs, who's on the call. She has a few staff members, and there's other staff that are salaried and benefited that participate in our after-school program and also participate as part of our summer programming. So that number would not drop to zero in that case. It would
Okay.
merely get spread to other areas of the recreation programming.
Okay, then I want to express the opinion that you should not be showing that number, implying that you are losing money at the waterfront, because that is not the case. I've run into this issue repeatedly in my career as an economic analysis, and allocating costs to an area when you are making a decision is not appropriate. So those line items should not be there. And your actual expenses on the right-hand side, where you're actually having staff to run the concession stand or for trash pickup, those would be appropriate cost and appropriate expenses. But allocating costs to show that causes it to show a very negative figure, I think is inappropriate.
That you're entitled to your opinion. I respectfully disagree. I mean, the department has to cover those costs some way. And we chose to divvy those costs across 3 categories of programming for recreation: waterfront, our in-house programming, and our vendor programming. So each of those programming areas, we broke out a specific segment of those costs and have attributed those costs to those operations. We can't ignore them, unfortunately, and they're not inconsequential. It's around $200,000 that the department has to cover. So it has to come from somewhere.
It has to come from somewhere. I won't debate this very long. Still don't agree with it.
Okay.
Because again, it creates an impression that this is a money losing operation, and that's not the purpose of the rec department. You're not a for-profit organization. Enough said on that. The other thing I
Yeah.
do want to express is that as a casual user, as well as a more, well, let me re-express that. I utilize the Edwards Beach in 2 different ways. Sometimes I'm exercising and I just want to drop in for a cooling swim, and I'm probably there for about 2 or 3 minutes, maybe 10 minutes tops.
Yep.
And that's quite frequent during the year. Occasionally we'll spend an afternoon there. That's probably 2, 3, 4, 5 times during the season. Not a lot. But to pay $5 every time I want to take a quick dip seems also a little inappropriate. So you have different kinds of customers, and a one-size-fits-all solution is, I think, not going to necessarily work well, or it's going to leave people dissatisfied, and I would be one of them.
Yeah, I think that's a great call out. I do see that there are people who probably just want to pop in for that quick swim, don't want to spend the whole afternoon. That's where potentially the option of a season pass, right? So you don't have to pay that fee every single time, might be more appropriate for your usage pattern. And one other thing I want to clarify, to your point about adding in things like the indirect costs and the management admin costs. Even if we pull that out, just to be clear, right, the expenses still outpace our revenues by a fairly healthy margin for this particular financial analysis. So, yeah, but I appreciate your input, and I think you made some really great points. Do you have anything else you want to add to your statement?
That's what
I'm sorry, I didn't catch that. You're some reverb.
No,
came.
that's all I wanted to say. Thank you.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. Appreciate it. Christina, why don't we go ahead? You're unmuted. Go ahead and you can address the committee when you like.
Thanks, Christina Green. So I typed this question in the Q&A, but I'll just ask it here. I've never been to the Littleton or the Acton beaches, so I'm just wondering how they compare to Edwards and Forge in terms of, do they have lifeguards? What are their amenities? If we're talking about comparing those fees, are they comparable?
Yeah, great questions. My personal opinion is, no, our beachfront operations are not comparable to what Acton and Littleton, for example, are able to provide. They have a much more robust waterfront operations than we do. So I would, my personal opinion is I don't think we would ever set a fee at the same level as some of those other communities are currently charging, just because we don't offer the same amount of amenities and value.
Okay. I mean, I think you need to consider that when you're talking about fees, whether it's instituting a fee to residents that hasn't been done in a long time. I won't say ever, because clearly in 1985 there were fees, but there were also lifeguards. So it seems a little unfair, or possibly a little unfair, to increase the fees when there isn't anything additional there. But for non-residents, maybe it makes sense. That's a little difficult for me to think about. What I would like to see is a little more analysis done on the outside group fees. It was mentioned that you bring in lifeguards, and I'd love to see a breakdown of the cost for the lifeguards against that. I think it was $2,600 fee for one of the groups, and I don't know which other groups are lifeguards are brought in for, but I'd like to see that, because we should be at least absolutely covering our costs, if not covering some of those overhead costs. Same with concessions before going to the residents for a fee.
Right. So concessions, are an area that are certainly handled just because we have people already there at the beaches. We're not hiring somebody specifically to run concessions. That's just an added task that the beach attendants are who are present are doing. As far as the summer programs, my understanding is that we do charge enough to offset the costs of hiring lifeguards. But Michelle, could you speak to that, please?
Hi there. Chris, can you say that again? Speak to the point of,
Yeah. So Christina's question was for the programs that come in and use our beaches. The concern is, are we charging them enough to cover the costs of, say, the lifeguards that we bring in when those programs are at the beaches?
yeah, so the groups that come in, depending on how many kids they have, determines how many lifeguards that we send over. But it does cover the cost of them being there. We charge them per lifeguard, and then we invoice them. So if they had 3 lifeguards there that day, then we'd charge them the hourly rate for the lifeguard on top of how many children are coming off the bus. There's a per person fee that the commission had agreed upon. I think it was last year when we were discussing rates. So yes, we do cover that cost. The other times that we go to the beach, if it's a program that the rec department is running, for example, when Kids Club goes down on Fridays, we have the appropriate number of lifeguards, and that just comes out of, that's not under the waterfront. It comes out of the summer weekly. So, but we do cover our costs, and we do have small groups down there because they pay per lifeguard.
Christina, any follow-up questions, or are you good?
Um, no, I think that that covers it. But again, I'll just reiterate that I think maybe a little more should be looked at little more in depth.
Sure. I will say we did increase the rate that we charge those programs. So you know, that is something that we as a commission are committed to doing ongoing. Is not just for any of our programs. We're looking at an annual review to ensure that we are you know, making the best financial choices possible without unduly burdening some of these programs. But so we can certainly look again to raise the rates again for them. That's something that might come up in a future conversation. All right, we have Jessica. You have your hand up.
Yeah, so I'm really loving the breakdown. It's adding a lot more insight into where you all are trying to determine like where to charge fees. I have been to a couple of the other beaches in Littleton and in Acton, and I will say the services are a bit more expansive. My thought for the Westford beaches is I'm really curious about how the decision around the adding to like the assessment of taxes earlier that occurred this year, how that's affecting the Parks and Rec department, and potentially how they could maybe fuel some more funding into the Parks and Rec department. My other curiosity is maybe seeing like about doing more like trying to like recruit more non-residents maybe that could charge those fees, because I do feel very passionately that Westford, there are very high taxes, and I'm starting to get notices for other areas such as like trash and wanting to add fees for that. And you know, our tax rate is already high. We have great school systems. We have great a lot of benefits in the Westford area, but I also feel very passionately that there should be spaces where people can exist and not be expected to spend money. And those are few and far between. And having expecting residents to spend money to go to these parks that maybe I'm sorry, I'm not very eloquent in this, but just wanting to figure out like what other areas are being explored to bring more money in to offset these costs versus asking some of the residents to spend more money.
Yeah, no, those are great questions and comments, Jessica. Thank you. As I mentioned, we are doing an analysis of all the programming. I will say that a lot of our program, in fact, probably the vast majority of our programming is enjoyed by our residents. So if we raise the rates of, say, the after-school program or some of the other programs that we offer, it's still going to be borne by the residents. At the end of the day, that's just the reality for our recreation department, is that the majority of the people that use it are residents. And yes, I can understand that it may feel unfair that people are being asked to pay more. The reality is that the town does not have, even with, you know, the tax increases that you mentioned, the revenue to fund everything that we want to fund. And this department already, as I mentioned, requires annually a subsidy from our general fund. So that means that money that could be used for other things like schools or bridges or roads or buildings is being diverted to support recreation. So we're trying to, you know, close that gap, if you will. And we've been steadily doing that over the years, thanks to Michelle's leadership, and doing analysis like we're doing here, with making sure that we are trying to come up with fees that are market driven and seem as fair as we can make them, knowing that, you know, if there's a resource in town that has not been historically charged for, and then all of a sudden we start charging, that is unpleasant. But you know, that's the reality of where Westford is, unfortunately, right now. So
I mean, it does make sense that like people are that there's going to be fees associated with doing a lot of things, and it's a perk that there are these beaches for people to use. I guess I'm trying to be mindful that when you, and I know you said it's very much for discussion, how you were talking about how to offset, whether it's like increasing the non-resident fee or having residents pay, I think what that grid said was $75 for a family of 5, maybe having it be, $75 for the summer for whoever's in the household, or figuring out if there's a sliding scale for families that maybe make under a certain income cap. Because Westford has a bit more affluence, but not necessarily for every single household. And so wanting to just be really mindful that that $75 might be a challenge for some families. And trying to figure out what that would look like. And also thinking about like the technology piece, because like I did sign up for Littleton's Beach Pass years ago, and it was a bit of a backward system. So wanting to figure out like, could there be like an ease of use where people could sign up with the teenagers that are tasked to check people in at the beach, versus having to go through 7 different electronic forms to try to get their beach pass. Just trying to think of different things to make sure that the parks really do stay accessible to people.
Yeah, great comments and really thoughtful. Yes, we are thinking about that. We don't want to raise too many barriers of entry. I think we have some latitude with, potentially setting, if we're talking about a season pass, maybe you have a season pass for a family, but you could maybe do it for seniors as well. I mean, you saw in one of those slides, that's what some of the other communities are doing. And we do have the capability to do the season pass through our MyRec system, which is how we do the non-resident season pass. So hopefully that would be as simple as possible for residents to enjoy. But there's some great feedback for the commission. Thank you very much. Do you have any other things that you want to cover?
No, that's it. Thank you.
Thank you so much. All right, Christy Bates, I'm going to allow you to talk. Go right ahead.
Hi, thank you. I just wanted to point out a couple of things. One is that $35,000 subsidy, that means that there are approximately 25,000 people in town. So each person paid less than $2 to have a park and rec department. And I think we kind of forget about that, but I recognize that and appreciate that we're looking into this to try to bring in more funds for the enterprise fund, so that does not subsidize anything. But I do think that I would pay for a pass if there were more amenities. And I know at the last meeting, I think you talked about looking into the cost of having lifeguards. And I had at that meeting mentioned that when my kids were a little younger, we did go to Littleton, and I do now recall that it was a little tricky getting the pass, but online, but it worked, and it was fabulous to be there with lifeguards present. So I would be amenable to paying for a pass as a resident with some additional services. I just want to say that.
Great. Thank you so much. All right. All right. It's not Erica.
Yeah, it is this time.
It is Erica this time. Okay.
The real one. The real one. I just wanted to say I do really enjoy going to the beach when we do get down there. One of the things that would make me more interested in paying for a fee is removing one of the detractions at the beach. So there's a couple things here. One is I would be happy to have a sliding scale that allows out-of-towners. I do feel bad for the people who don't get to have such wonderful resources in town in their own communities, being able to come here. And so that doesn't hurt my head to have a sliding scale. But what hurts my head literally is when they impose their music on me. And I would love to see signs that make it nice for everyone to be able to not have to hear other people's music. So if there were just signs, I'm not saying that it has to be enforced by anyone other than the people there, like me, going over and say, hey, we have a sign. Please don't amplify your music like that. That would be beneficial. Just recognize that that's a detractor. And it happened a lot when we had those higher numbers at Edwards, that I would go to the beach and hear music when I wanted to hear waves. That's my comment. Thank you.
Erica, thank you so much for your comment. And it's very rare in my very long period of volunteer service for the town that I get to say this, but your wish has been granted. We did hear that same complaint from a resident earlier. We did take steps to revamp our signage, and included in the new signage, which has been posted on both beaches, is a request for people to be mindful about playing music. So I don't know if that will make it go away, but you will at least be able to point to the sign saying that is now a rule. Please observe it. So
I'm thrilled just to have something to point to. So thank you
yes,
for that.
thank you for your comment. Appreciate it. All right, we have some questions in the Q&A. Let me see if I can get to those. Oh, Mike, go ahead.
Yeah, Chris, two things. One, like, just for the clarification or information for everybody. A, if we tried to pay for lifeguards, those fees that we showed on the chart obviously would be significantly even higher if we had to cover the cost of lifeguards. Is that correct?
It is highly likely, Mike, that we would have to pay an additional premium to hire lifeguards. We would not be able to hire them probably at the minimum wage level that we pay, I think, the majority of our beach attendants.
Okay. And the second thing is the procedure. If fees were to be approved, just so everybody's aware of how the procedure is it just the Parks and Rec Commission approving it, or does it have to go to the select board or town meeting, or any further approvals beyond the Parks and Rec Commission?
This is under the authority of the Park and Rec Commission, so we could make the determination. That's not to say that if residents didn't agree with us, that they couldn't go to a higher authority, i.e. the select board.
Okay, thanks, Chris.
All right, you're very welcome. And just lower your hand there, Mike, when you get a second. Thank you. We have a question from Donna. Is it possible to use CPA funds towards free resident usage of this recreational area? The Park and Rec Commission does have a liaison to the Community Preservation Commission. That is Mike. Would you hazard a guess at this, Mike?
Honestly, it's never come up. I don't know. I could look into to see if the costs for the beach usage could be offset by CPC funds. My guess is, I've only been on the commission for a year, CPC. My guess is probably not, but I can certainly check into it and find out for sure.
Thank you, Mike. Appreciate that. Having been on community preservation myself, I do not believe that that is an option that the Community Preservation Commission would entertain, but I do think we could make further inquiries to determine that. We have a statement from June. Good Harbor and Wingercheek beaches charge $30 weekdays and $35 for weekends to park. Thank you, June. Furthermore, Gloucester beaches mentioned as reference point, you alluded to a subsidy by the town. East Boston, EBC, which I assume East Boston Camps, town subsidy for the 2024 year was $80,000. I think it would be best to try and have non-residents pay more of the cost associated with the upkeep of our beach properties. Awesome. Thank you, June. And last point from June is signs do nothing. Lots of signs at East Boston Camps that nobody pays any attention to. Unfortunately, you are somewhat right there. So thank you very much for those comments, June. I appreciate it. Mike.
Yeah, just to reiterate what you mentioned at the beginning of this, and it was on the charts, that it's going to be very hard to differentiate between playground users versus beach users. And if someone's going to go to the playground, who's to say it's on a very hot day, they don't decide to wander down to the beach and use the beach as well. So that is an issue that we have to resolve.
Agree. Yep. I think, we have fencing at Edwards, so I think we're okay there. I think the forge is going to be the challenge in that area. All right. Any other comments? Michelle, go ahead. You're unmuted.
Oh, wait. Hi.
Hi.
I'm not sure how to use this. Um, to me, as a taxpayer, we did go do the 2.5 override. I understand that. These places in town, I've gone to Forge primarily because we live closer to that side of town. And it's an amazing place. It's a gathering spot for young, for old people with their cups of coffee. Older people walk down, they just sit at the picnic bench. They're not going in the water. I mean, some people do, some people kayak. I have actually never really gone in the water except to skip rocks, that kind of thing, but have been to the beach over several decades with my kids, my parents. You see high school kids sitting on the swings, just being kids, kids doing their homework at the benches. You see people having dinner. You see people even maybe doing telecommute. There's a lot of different people. There's young people, there's old people just going to the park. So at that beach, it seems ridiculous to have a fee to go down to just sit and read a book when you're just sitting down to read a book. It's like going to a playground at Jack Walsh and being charged to use the playground there, or to go walk on a field, or to sit at a picnic bench or a park bench in town. So I would totally disagree with that. I do feel that if there's fees associated through the admin and your IT department, that they should be covered through the town budget, and not saying that, oh, you're taking money out of the education. It's just part of the town, and it's a part of the soul of the town, is having a place to go to get rejuvenated, to reconnect as a community, to just have a moment. Sometimes I've gone there when, you've had a hard day at work, you need a few minutes before you face the kids and face the rest of the night. Or if you've had some bad medical information and you just need time to sit down and just look. So I would highly encourage you to think about another option than the fees that you're suggesting for town residents, because a lot of people just go for a bike ride and they stop at Forge to take a break, just to get a water break, not even to jump in the water like Mr. Cole does. But so it's a town beach, but it's not just, it's a parking lot where people meet, like sit at the picnic benches, sit at the table, chat.
Michelle, I think Michelle, we're losing you a little bit.
I
There it
just feel that there's a lot of different ages. Like been to that beach over tons of times over the decades, and I've never actually swum in the water. And I don't think, and there's a lot of other people who haven't. They just go there to enjoy it as a town park. And I don't think you should be charging for town parks.
Very good. Michelle, thank you so much for your comments. I just would want to point out, for the benefit of everybody listening, the difference here is that between the waterfronts, for the period of time that we staff them, right, and this is key, we staff these areas. We do not staff the other part.
You don't staff them with a lifeguard. You staff them with someone collecting a fee at the front and at a
Correct.
concession stand.
Yep, that
And
is
for the
correct.
most part, the place does not get trashed. People pick up their own trash.
Okay, that's a matter of opinion. We do have people there picking up trash, but I think you've made some great points. But I just want to clarify that, we're talking about not just a playground where there's nobody attending that playground. We are paying people at these resources, so we're looking to offset the cost of those.
They're not
personnel
actually doing
staff.
anything at the playground, though.
No, we're talking about the beach areas, right? That's what I'm talking about.
Yeah, but they're not like lifeguarding at the beach areas. They're not supervising at the beach areas. They're collecting a fee at the front entrance.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
But they're
picking up
not
trash and-
actually doing anything at the beach to add to the beach.
Again, that's your opinion. They are there to provide the concessions. They are there to sort of monitor to make sure that the beaches do not get inundated with people from other communities, which has been a concern by some, and to pick up trash. So they are doing something. It's not like they're doing nothing. But your point has been taken, and I appreciate your comments. Is there anything else that you wanted to mention?
But I would like to know if this gets where this goes, or you just unanimously make a decision. Something was mentioned about it going to the select board. Or do
So
you just, as a chair, make decisions?
I'm sorry, you faded out on me there. Can you repeat
I
that?
said, as a chair, as your chair, your group just make the decisions, or does this go to the select or the planning board or other boards?
The Park and Rec Commission would have the authority to implement this charge.
Mhm.
And that's what this commission is contemplating this evening. Not saying that they're
Mm-hmm.
going to do it, but we're hearing from the public as part of that information gathering process, and then it'll be up to the commission to decide what they want to do.
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
Mm-hmm.
thank you. Diane Wood, you have your hand up. Go ahead. You should be able to talk. You're still on mute, Diane.
Okay,
There we are.
you can hear me now. Thank you.
Yes.
I think I agree with Michelle. But my bottom line is, having been in town for many, many years now, I don't agree with charging for residents. Considering the overrides we've been through, considering the amount of development that's on the horizon, and the support and the maintenance of all our buildings, it's a minimal gesture to provide our residents someplace to go where they don't have to pay additional fees. I don't, and I agree with some of your comments, Chris, that I don't think everybody understands the behind the scenes costs. For example, we talked about someone collecting the fees at the entrance. No, they're not physically going in and saving divers in the water, but that costs money. Insurance costs money. Cleaning the beaches up costs money. So it's a hard choice here, in my humble opinion. But if possible, I would like to see us not charge for residents and work out some type of reasonable fee for out of towners. And knowing what we're up against for the next couple of fiscal years here, I think it's the least we could do for our residents.
All right, great. Thank you, Diane. Appreciate the feedback. Michelle, do you still have a question? Your hand's still up. Michelle Long. All right, I think maybe she just had her hand up. Okay. Erica?
That's me again.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
Sorry, we're sitting side by side. I did want to note for the out-of-town residents, it's my experience that after the gatekeeper leaves at 5 o'clock or whatever time it is, you get a lot of what I would expect are out-of-town residents coming in and not paying. So they either are coming in after work, or they're coming in knowing that the gate person leaves at 5 o'clock. So there's a lot of town revenue that's if you're charging non-residents, that's being left on the table as a consequence of having someone leave at 5 o'clock.
Great. All right. That's good to know. Thank you so much. Yeah, I just wanted to point out for folks that we only staff the beaches from, I believe it's late June to mid-August. And is it, Michelle, what time do they start in the morning? Is it 9 to 5, or is it earlier than that?
The beaches are open from 9 to 5.
Okay, thank you. So the fee that we're contemplating here, it would only be for that period of time. The beaches would be open to the public, residents, non-residents outside of that period for anybody free of charge. So I just want to clarify that. We have a couple other questions in the Q&A. I guess these are maybe statements. Many older residents use the beach as a social meetup for coffee, chat. They are using only the benches and picnic tables, and this is an important part of their well-being. How do we impose charging for this? Other people use the beach as a place to take a work break, etc., for well-being. In this time of mental health crisis, we are taking away a place of connection for people of all ages, playgrounds, work breaks, family walks, coffee chats. All right. Christy Bates asks, would there be a fee at the East Boston Camp Beach? I don't believe there would be. Another anonymous attendee has asked the question, also, if we pay for the beach, would the goose poop go away? Can't promise that would happen, unfortunately. Christy Bates, again, please clarify the times that the fee would apply, months and days. I think I just did that. So hopefully, Christy, that answers that question. And then there's another question about, or should I ask, would the goose poop get cleaned up? It's a big issue at Forge. I don't know, Michelle, do the beach attendants do anything in regards to the goose poop at the beach? Can you answer that question?
Yes, they're trained to, when they get there, do a scoop. They have pooper scoopers literally in bags, and they go around and they clean up as much as they can. And then they're told to do it midday, because they just come back. And then they do one quick one at night. And then, you know, they're instructed to do it several times a day, while doing other things. So the
Thank you,
goose poop at Ford is a problem. They're really over there a lot, and we do the best that we can.
Great. Thank you, Michelle. All right. Any other feedback from the public on this matter? I don't see any other hands. I don't see any other questions. All right. So commissioners, we've heard some public comment here. We've had a presentation. We have some ideas potentially in front of us. I'm certainly happy to entertain a motion or any other conversation between commissioners on this matter. Go ahead, Matt.
Yeah, I think the elder use of the beaches has come up a couple times. So I think we should maybe consider either a waiver or some kind of reduction for certain populations, for certain demographics in town.
Okay.
It was always 63 and under, and 65 and over are free currently. So
So I mean, I think if that's the case, it sounds like if that is a place that's being used by elders who, you know, may have limited resources, then if I'd be in favor of amending it to continue that under 3 over 65 usage. Or I propose that to the group.
I think that's reasonable for consideration. You know, for me, I think one of the challenges again is if we were to implement a beach fee for residents, is how do we segment the, you know, non-beach users at Forge from beach users? Because there's certainly a lot of area that's, you know, maybe outside the beach. There's trails there. You know, there's sort of a jetty at the end of the beach, at the end of the parking area that people fish off of. There's the playground. So I think it'd be very hard for us to, you know, have somebody sit at the beginning of the beginning of the parking lot and try to collect a day pass fee from residents who, you know, want to just use the playground, or they want to take their dog for a walk in the trails behind the beach. So I have a question, I think, for the head of our DPW, Kyle. Is there maybe a low cost way that we could put up some sort of fencing around the beach area at Forge to provide that segmentation similar to what we have at Edwards, or would that be cost prohibitive?
I couldn't really give you an answer tonight, Chris. I'd have to do an evaluation of what section you would close off and how secure you'd want it to be. Obviously, if you went a chain link fence route, it'd be quite expensive. Orange construction fence could do the job, but it's pretty ugly and not very sustainable. So short of those anecdotes, I don't really feel I'm in a position to answer.
Chris,
Very good.
can I interject?
Please.
I mentioned earlier, when we moved to Westford in 85, we had beach tags you had to pay for, and that resolved that very problem. People could go down to the beach area, sit at the picnic tables, even put boats in the water. But the people that went on the beach were asked to show their actual physical beach tag. So if you were not going to the beach, you didn't have to pay and you didn't have to show anything. But we actually had physical beach tags that people paid for at town hall. And if you were going onto the beach, you had to show the beach tag. So
Mike,
that's how you differentiate that usage.
did they have a day pass option in that situation, or do you have to buy the pass ahead of time at town hall?
We always bought family season passes, so I don't know what the day pass was. You may have been able to get one at the beach. I honestly don't remember for the day pass situation.
Okay. So Michelle, if we did something like, the removable bracelets that you get at carnivals and things like that, people would, give us the day pass and we'd give them a bracelet and they'd go on their May, and then we'd have to have the beach attendants, periodically walk through the beach and I guess patrol, for lack of a better word. Particularly at Forge. Do you see that as a viable option here for us?
I mean, anything's doable. So I guess if that was something that was required to do that, we'd have to discuss a little further on how we'd execute that. Training the staff to do that.
Right. Okay, thank you. All right, so commission, here we are again. Do we have anybody wants to make a concrete proposal here? Do you want more time to think about this? We can schedule a follow-up for another meeting. Do you want to take no action at all on this? It's really your call, commissioners.
Yeah, Chris, for myself, I'd like to do a little bit more research, actually head down to Forge and the other beach and kind of look at the space. I think that the point that Mike just made in regards to the tag itself and going onto the beach instead of to the beach, is there a physical marker? Is there a differentiation between those spaces, so that if indeed you were literally just wanting to go to the beach and visit, outside of a sandy area or something, you could, and that's not going to cost you versus, the literally sit in the sand, put your feet in the water, what have you. And I'd like to do a little bit more personal research on that in order to really formulate, my response.
Okay, thank you, Brock.
Michelle, I have a question for you. When was the last time the salary of the beach attendants was changed? Has that been constant for a while, or does that go up every year that you pay the beach attendants?
The beach attendants get minimum wage. Right now it's $15 an hour.
Okay. Any other feedback from commission? So I have one commissioner requesting additional time. Is that the will of the commission? Go ahead, Dan.
I just had a question. Is it 2 beach attendants that are there during the day?
Yeah, so I have one collecting the money and one in the shack. And I split the day up. There's a morning shift and an afternoon shift. So I got 2 in the morning, 2 in the afternoon, 2 at all times. No one's ever there alone. So at the minimum, I have 2. I've tried getting 3 on the weekends, but that can be challenging. So I at least have one collecting money and one at the snack shack.
Great. Thank you, Michelle. Matt?
Yeah, so we've been benchmarking Littleton and Acton, and I know both of those areas where there's swimming, there's other things to do. I've just never been there during those times, but does anyone know how they kind of segregate the swimmers from the regular park users? if they're and like what's their, I'm sure someone's already figured this out.
Yeah, so well, Acton has physical fencing, and actually so does Littleton, for example. Although they have a playground within the fenced-in area, I believe. So I don't know what they do in that scenario if they have an issue with people wanting to go to that playground and also to the beach, what they do. But I know Acton had, the actual beach area is fenced in, and
Well, Edwards kind of has the opposite, where there is a fence, and I think the playground is separate from the beach, so it's really just a forge issue. So I think we
sorry, say that question again.
well, it's more of a statement. It sounds like Edwards is a non-issue because they're
Right.
I think there's a pretty clear path to get to the playground without going near the beach.
Edwards, it's fenced off, so we don't have the
Yeah,
problem.
yeah. So this is a forge specific issue. So I think working out we do need to work that out, but I don't know if that needs to happen before we make our call. I think my only request would be that if we are going to add the provision for the under 3/65 to continue to have that kind of in the motion or in the proposal itself.
Mm-hmm. Yep, sounds reasonable.
Chris, my
Yeah.
personal feeling, and I think I'm in the large minority, is that I would like to see fees charged high enough, but provide lifeguards at both beaches from that 9 to 5 time frame. But knowing that to do that, the fees would have to be much larger than even was proposed in that the slides. My other question is, and we said that the amount of money that's subsidized at the end of the year by the general town fund, in this case, we said, I was thinking $70,000. What has been the level of pushback from either the town manager or the select board in doing that presuming it's every year, something similar? How much of a pushback do we get on that?
I think that's a difficult one for me to gauge, Mike. I have sat in budget review meetings, FinCom, when they have their review with finance. I mean, we have the chair of the FinCom with us this evening. We could certainly ask her. But I think the general direction is people want to see the recreation department, pay for itself. That would be my interpretation of the comments that I've heard at some of the public meetings that I've attended on this matter. But again, that's just my interpretation. Nobody has given us a directive saying you must do X to close this gap or else that I'm aware of.
So just even if you raise the fees and didn't close that full gap, the effort to reduce the gap would be welcomed by FinCom, town manager, etc.
Well, Christina's got her hands up, so presumably she might have a response for you. So I'll let her, Christina, you're unmuted.
Thanks. So I'm just speaking for myself because FinCom has not really formally discussed this in depth, but I can give the sense of the finance committee. In the past, before FY25, the subsidy is closer to the $200,000 mark, not $35,000. The only reason it was this low this year is because there was a lot of pushback during the budget cycle, and the Rec Commission is using more of their what's called retained earnings, call it like a savings account, to bridge the rest of the gap. There has been talk pretty much every year for the last few years that because the rec department is an enterprise fund, that means that it should be self-sustaining. There should be as low a subsidy from the town as possible. And that is what both FinCom and the Budget Task Force wanted to see happen going forward, which is why they cut the subsidy back this year.
Thank you, Christina.
You're
I
welcome.
appreciate that. That's a great clarification.
Christina, a question for you. I thought, I may be wrong, the 38,000 was only the beach portion of deficit. Am I wrong?
It
not the full
is.
subsidy.
I think it sort of worked out sort of funny that the subsidy, I believe also this year is that same $35,000 number. I'm sure it's not just from the waterfront. So I think it's a little bit of a coincidence that the total subsidy is around $30,000 or $35,000, and that happens to be the loss at the waterfront.
You're right. That's correct. Mike, does that answer your question?
Did I guess I was under the impression that the total rec department subsidy was much higher than the 38,000 though. Maybe
It-
I'm wrong. Maybe I'm
It
wrong.
it was in past years, and even this year it would have been more like $180,000. I may be getting the number wrong, but it was a lot higher. But I think there's about $150,000 from from the rec savings account being used to fill some gaps this year versus coming from the town's general fund.
Right. And again, just to be clear, Mike, if we were to look at the analysis that we did for the waterfront and make that, cost neutral, it still wouldn't account for the entirety of the subsidy that we get from the general fund, right? It's closing the gap, but it's not going to solve it.
No, because you still have another 150,000 in this budget that you would need to close.
Right.
Right. So I guess I was saying that the total gap, if you want to use the word gap, is about 180,000. 38,000 is from the beach deficit.
That contributes, yes.
Okay.
And to be clear, just looking at the numbers of residents when we did that collection for that week in July, even if we implement, if you take last year's non-resident numbers, which we have for every week, and you say, okay, if on a given week, the number of residents that attend our beach is twice that of the number of non-residents, okay, and that's a pretty broad assumption that we would make, but just play along with me for a second. So so if you made that assumption and you made the assumption that every one of those residents would pay that $5, fee, we're not talking huge money. It's only several $1,000s. It's not going to close the waterfront operation deficit. We would have to increase the fees by quite a bit if we were going to do that. So I just want to make sure people are aware of that. It's a step in closing it, but it's not going to solve it. Okay. We are quite a bit over time here, Commission, and in an effort to sort of stay somewhat close to our agenda, I'm going to either ask if any commissioner wants to make a motion regarding a proposal at this point. They want to table this discussion for the next meeting. I do need some direction from the commission. So what's the general consensus here?
Chris, I'd make a motion. My purpose, after hearing a lot of feedback from the public tonight, that no decision be made until maybe next month's meeting. I think, at least myself, I'd like to have time to think about all the things we've heard tonight from the.
All right. So Mike is a vote for tabling. Brock, I think I heard the same from you. Dan, Matt, where are you at on this? Devin?
I could second that with the provision that we had in I already made the comments a couple times, but when we discussed it with the additions of the points that we've made.
All right. So is somebody going to make a motion to table this to the next meeting?
Did Mike just do that? I think
I'll make a motion. Let's table any decision on fees being charged for the waterfront be postponed until a future meeting.
All right.
I can second that.
All right, Matt, second. All right. Any discussion on that motion? I don't see any. So since we're remote, I'm going to do a roll call. So when I call your name, just give me an aye or a nay. Matt?
Aye.
Dan?
Aye.
Brock?
Aye.
Mike?
Aye.
Devin?
Aye.
And I'm also an aye. So the motion to table discussion to a future Park and Rec Commission meeting passes unanimously. For members of the public that joined this evening for this agenda item, the commission truly appreciates the thoughtful commentary that you provided this evening and the time that you spent with us. Thank you so much for doing that. We'll move along to our next agenda item, which is, let me just grab the agenda, capital project review. So we have on the community fields, a discussion that had started a few months back and has sort of continued on at some of our meetings. And for people who are new to the call, the commission has put forth a capital request this year to replace the artificial turf at the community fields at Nutting Road. That turf surface has reached the end of its usable life. The cost estimate to replace that is roughly $1.5 million, I believe. Kyle, correct me if I'm wrong on that. Was it 1.5 or 1.3?
1.5.
Thank you, sir. There were some concerns issued by some of the commissioners, as well as members of the Capital Planning Committee, about the use of artificial turf from a variety of different perspectives. So it was the will of the commission to discuss this a little bit more in depth at this meeting. We've had a bunch of information shared in the commission. So with that, is there any discussion, questions, anything that the commission wants to take up this evening on this matter? And members of the public, feel free to raise your hand if you'd like to address the commission on this topic. Mike, yeah, if you could use your raise your hand feature, because I can't see you sometimes. Yeah, thank you. Go ahead.
Okay. I've had a discussion with Chris about this. Being on the CPC, one of the things that is not allowed, that does not allow CPC money to be used for, is to pay for artificial turf replacement. I did some checking with online and found out several towns have found out that what is allowed is money to be spent on support infrastructure or planning or any non-turf exact expenditures. So if there had to be a preparation of the site, if there had to be engineering work done, anything not directly related to the actual turf itself, that is by state law allowed by CPC to use CPC money. In fact, Chelmsford recently do it, and there's like 16 towns in the state that have used that CPC money for that purpose. So I don't know if Kyle has any appetite for trying to break out the cost of that replacement and submit the cost not for the turf itself, but the related costs to CPC for approval. Because it appears that is an allowable expense.
So Kyle, do you think the estimate that we received, would that company be able to give us an estimate in breaking out the costs per Mike's request, or?
Yeah, I guess I would have to see what the specific language says. In my mind, the site is already prepared. When I think of site preparation, I think of taking an old field and prepping it for being a turf field, where it's already a turf field. I don't know that there's any site prep per se to do. You know, the parking lot's there, the field is there. Really, the project is removing the existing turf and underliner and putting new pad and turf in. I'm not sure any of that would qualify for site prep.
You might be right. That since I was like it's all directly part of the turf installation and removal. I mean, I can look into it a little bit more and see if something like any part of that is allowable. I think it is not, but I can check.
Yeah, you know, Mike, a suggestion might be, if you don't mind, if you can contact a town that has done the refurbishment of their turf fields with CPA money, and then maybe see if we could ask them for how their project was budgeted out and what part was submitted to Community Preservation Commission and paid for through CPA funds. That
I'll do that.
might help us.
Yep,
Thank you.
yep.
Brock, go ahead.
Yeah, I wanted to mention a couple things. One, thanks to Jackie for all of the information that she provided to all the commissioners. It was very useful and helpful and trying to make a decision here. So wanted to thank her for that. And also, do we know what the cost is for replacing with a natural field versus a replacement of a turf? What is the cost differential between that?
I did ask Kyle that this morning when I spoke with him. We do not have that number. I think it's safe to say that it would not be a cheap replacement. Putting in irrigation, disposal of the existing field and subsurface, laying down fresh, dirt and seeding it and all that stuff. It's going to be very expensive. But we don't have a number right now, unfortunately.
Okay. And then I think also last time we talked about hearing from the user groups that were actually using the field and their preferences. I think that that would also be beneficial in making this decision if indeed we have a user group that is wanting that artificial replacement. And we should know that if indeed there is either a majority or a minority that is requesting one way or the other.
Yep, I think that's a great call. I did take an opportunity to reach out to the presidents of the Westford Youth Soccer Association and the Westford Youth Lacrosse Association, which are two of our most heavy users of the Nutting Road community fields. They both indicated that their organizations strongly utilize those fields and would probably miss having them. I think if this commission was interested in further conversation, our next step would be to, do a more public announcement of this topic for a future meeting, similar to what we did this evening with the beach fees. And try to get a wider, range of input from the public. I just wasn't sure before doing that it was the will of the commission to go that route. So that's one of the things that we're probably needing to decide this evening.
Okay, that sounds good.
Okay, Matt, go ahead.
Yeah, no, I also appreciate what Jackie put together, and I did some legwork. And I mean, I think if an intermediate step between opening this up to the public and making a decision might be bringing on a content expert, because it's a big decision and there's a lot of other communities that have decided to go with a natural field over turf because of the potential pollutants and health and safety issues. And it's a big topic. It's going to affect that field and the folks who use it and the folks who live around it for a long time. So that I propose that. I don't think it's necessarily like a need, but bringing on somebody who can kind of answer specific questions and give kind of a better expert level overview of what the current status is of turf fields and these concerns that have been brought up.
I'm not aware of any such group or party that would do that. Are you aware of somebody that has?
Yeah, I did some legwork. There's folks I know there's a number of people in my industry that can do it, but also through the Merrimack River Watershed Council, which technically that area is within that watershed. So I did reach out to their science and policy folks, and there's a lot of different groups that or individuals and groups that we could tap to potentially give us an overview or like a presentation and answer questions on it at a future meeting.
Are you volunteering to take a lead on finding that resource and
I could volunteer for that. It's an important topic. I think we should really know all of the be as well informed as possible before making a decision either way.
Okay. Well, that's a great piece of information, and if we can find a resource to give us further guidance, I certainly think that that's something we shouldn't pass up. Any other commentary from the commission? I don't see anything from the members of the public that are currently on the meeting. So I will ask the commission, I guess we don't have a motion here, but I think we have an offer from Matt to see if he can line up a consultant for our next meeting or some expert to address the commission. Is it the will of the commission that we publicize the next meeting a little bit more than what we typically do, which is, again, just to post the meeting publicly? We always do that, but in this case, I'm talking about putting out a news flash and making sure that maybe there's a larger amount of residents that are aware that this conversation is taking place. Is there a desire from the commission to do that at this point?
Chris, before you go there, there's several comments and questions in the Q&A about this.
Oh, thank you. Appreciate you bringing that up. Kyle, was that what you were going to mention? Okay,
Yeah.
thank you. Thank you, Mike and Kyle. Okay, so we have a question or comment from Emily Teller. I would like to speak in favor of natural/grass fields, healthier for the athlete, viewers, and the planet. I think maintenance is the issue, but we have had grass for decades. Thank you. All right, thank you very much for your comment, Emily. Erica, are fees collected from the users of the town sports fields? The answer is yes. We do charge our sports groups for the use of the fields. And Thomas Groves, Westford Youth Lacrosse is in support of keeping the nutting fields as turf versus natural. There are plenty of natural field options in town, and the turf field gives us more flexibility for inclement weather training, including starting our seasons earlier, etc. Thank you for your consideration. Thomas, thank you very much for providing that feedback from Westford Youth Lacrosse. All right, so commission, where do we want to head on this? We don't want to go with Matt's suggestion. Anybody have a motion?
I would, yeah, I would just suggest that we take next meeting to hopefully have a consultant or somebody come in and talk to the commission, and then maybe open it up from to a broader audience from there, would be my suggestion.
If we do that, it would be probably easier to have it be remote, because some of the I just went back through my email and it looks like the most outspoken source right now is folks from the Charles River watershed, which is, they're based in Boston, and I don't think they'd be willing to drive out to Westford at night to talk about this, but they'd probably be able to connect via Zoom.
I'm personally a big proponent of having, meetings where we're trying to get a large section of the public to join virtually. I think historically, my experience is we've gotten a better turnout when we do that. So I certainly would be in support of that. I do caution though, Matt, we don't want to find the group that's super anti turf fields, right? So try and find somebody that's as nonpartisan as possible. I don't know how easy or hard that's going to be.
It's difficult when it's science, because the data the data is the data, and it's the pro is, it's more flexible for people to use for sports, but the con is the con, and it's, I'm not an expert on this, but like that, those are the two arguments, and I think that's really what we have to it's not really determining is there an impact, it's learning like what is the impact, what can be done to mitigate it, and are we willing to make that trade-off for usability.
Correct. And I think, at least my perusal of the literature seems to suggest that a lot of the science is vague and inconclusive at this point, unfortunately. There's no smoking gun that I was able to read that says, hey, a turf field is going to do X. And that stinks, right? It would be a lot easier if we did have that smoking gun that said, yes, if you're going to get cancer if you play on a turf field. The reality is, yeah, if you lay on it or eat the little pebbles, and I don't know, you'd have to do a lot, I think, to get a really significant exposure to those chemicals. At least that's my interpretation of the literature. So having a professional, an expert in the field to help with clarity there would be probably very helpful. So yeah, if we can get somebody, I think Zoom is a completely appropriate mechanism and would make it easier for everybody. So we have another question here or statement. Are you considering increasing the fees on sports fields users in addition to or instead of instituting fees on the town beaches? And the answer is yes. We do have as a further agenda item this evening, just a very brief review of our beginning of that analysis. So what we have done, and not to give away what we're doing in another agenda item, is contacting other communities, looking at how they're determining their fees, and trying to come up with the appropriate mechanism with which to develop fees for our sports user groups who use our fields and courts. Emily Teller says, would you like the Westford Board of Health to weigh in on this field issue? We can certainly ask for their opinion, Emily, and we can ask if one or more of their board would like to join the next meeting. So thank you for that thought. That's a good call out. All right, so it seems to me we're of the opinion that we're going to try to get the input from a couple other different sources, put the word out to the residents at large, and gather more input on this conversation. Is that a fair summary of the commission's will at this point? Show of nods would be good. Okay,
Right.
good. That's what I'm seeing. Okay, so moving on this evening, our next item is to talk about our ongoing capital project at the Jack Walsh recreation area. That is the replacement of our failed tennis courts and basketball courts. Kyle has asked the commission to weigh in on color schemes for those new courts. Kyle, would you like to share with us some of the samples that you had gotten from our company that's doing the work?
Yeah, thank you, Chris. So I'm going to start with this slide first. So these are the basic colors that we have to choose from. And I've highlighted purple and gray. If we go with those colors, there'll be an added cost. I don't know what that added cost would be at this point, but those are considered premium colors. And by the same account, the lines, red, orange, and blue lines would be considered premium costs as well. With that, I've got a cool tool I can share with the group, and we can kind of see a visual of what the courts will look like with some of these colors. So if you want to start with tennis, maybe. I've picked the light blue and light green for the tennis court. You can see we have an array of colors to choose from. But again, those primary greens, blues, and reds are the ones that are within budget for the project. So what I'm hoping to get is a sense from the commission of what color scheme you'd like to see so that we can get that back to the contractor so they can order the materials for the completion of the project.
I've got a question. Mike, you had sent out an email about this in regards to Groton's colors. Would it make a difference, if you're a Westford player, what the Groton colors are? Is it something that, you get that cross play and having the same colored courts a benefit, or it really wouldn't matter?
Well, no, it doesn't matter that we have to match what Groton has, although what they have is very good in terms of the color choices. But for the pickleball courts, what is I think very important is to have what they call the non-volley zone and the rest of the court to be significantly different. So like this here, that the reddish or maroonish, that red area and the green area be totally different colors, because it's easy to differentiate those areas, and that's important during the course of playing pickleball. White lines are perfectly fine. In fact, that's what we have. They use over there a very light blue and a darker blue, but the actual colors aren't as important as that the differentiation of the two areas are important.
And I did reach out, Mike, to the contractor this morning when I saw your email about the kitchen area. He's going to check with the court surfacer to see if that was in the bid to do the multicolor. I suspect this is something we can do. It seems pretty simple to me.
Yeah, single color makes it very difficult for players to make the call. Was that in that kitchen area or not, or did you step in that area? It really makes a big difference. It's a very big advantage to having different colors.
One question I did have, Mike, if the kitchen area were the same as the perimeter area, would that be a big deal?
I think that's a problem when the ball gets very close to one of the rules in pickleball is you can call a ball that's out only if you see space, the color of the outside, the perimeter between the white line and where the ball landed. Having that kitchen area and the perimeter being the same color, that's going to make it more difficult to make those calls. So I would say it'd be nice to have the perimeter a different color altogether.
Matt, do you have a comment?
Yeah, I'm the last person to pick out colors, but one thing that we got to think about is folks with color blindness or color. We were just going through this at work with our new recreation map, and we had to make sure that we accounted for that when we were differentiating different sections. So I guess that's my only feedback would be not having red and green alternating. And I'm not an expert on color blindness, so there might be other factors, but if there are any colors that we can exclude from that are common kind of color blindness issues, because that would make playing pickleball really challenging for folks.
Matt, I would say to that the color themselves, red, green, blue, gray, whatever, is less important than the light versus dark, because I think even a person with color blindness can differentiate between the lighter color and the darker color, even if they couldn't tell what color it was. So I would say the kitchen area would tend to be a lighter color than the remaining part of the court. And that way, hopefully someone with color blindness would still have no problem differentiating.
Right. I just want to make it as easy for them as possible. We don't want to exclude any folks from playing the sport.
I think it's a great consideration. Thanks, Matt, for bringing that up. Dan, you have your hand raised.
In the email, you sent a satellite view of the current color scheme at Robinson. So with that gray, that would be a premium color if we were to use that same gray here?
It would be, yes.
And not in the budget.
All right. I kind of liked the idea of Westford colors.
Yeah,
but
me too.
It's not the end of the world if it's not, because it's not harming anybody, but just kind of my comment.
Kyle, can you bring up that visual if it's easy for you to do, just so we can all see it?
Bear with me.
So while Kyle's doing that, does anybody have any strong opinions about a color at this point?
I personally like the red and the blue. But it sounds like with what Mike's saying about the kitchen, having the 3-color palette, it'd be interesting to see what that looks like.
Yeah, Brock, it'd be nice to have the perimeter, the kitchen area, and the remaining part of the court be 3 different colors. That just makes it easier to make these in-out calls and things of that sort.
So is that maroon and green, or is that maroon and gray?
This is the red and gray. This is the new courts at Robinson.
Okay. Yeah, that's a better, okay. So if we were to do the red outer, and then, a dark blue with a light blue kitchen, would that work for people?
Sure.
Say that again, Chris?
The outer area be the same red that we have at, oh, look at that. And then, maybe dark blue or, dark blue, light blue for the kitchen. Because we can't, the gray or, well, was that dark green?
That would work, as far as I'm concerned.
Do people like that layout?
Yeah, I
Sure.
think that's easily differentiate the three different colors.
Yeah. Um, I
What the
think
colors, you'd ask 10 people what colors to use for the actual court, and you probably get 10 different color combinations. It's just,
hey, that's the
Precisely
beauty
why I
of,
didn't make the decision.
right, right.
but I guess,
Um,
I think any pickleball player would be happy with something like that. Outer perimeter being one color, and the kitchen area and the rest of the court being significantly different
Okay.
colors, even if different shades of a color, certainly.
Right. So Kyle, we have a question. How much more is the gray paint? Do we have an idea on that? If it's not in the budget, it doesn't matter, right? So if
I
we
don't have that number, no.
and we don't have it budgeted anyhow, so non-issue. Okay. All right. So it sounds like, I'm in favor of this. It looked like Dan, you were nodding your head. Brock, are you a head nodder on this color? Yep, a thumb up. We got another thumbs up from Matt. Mike?
I'm okay, but I'm fine with this.
Fine with that. Devin, what do you think?
I like the blue and the red. For the tennis court, I personally would like I think the darker blue is better for the contrast with the tennis ball.
So red and then the dark blue for the court itself, like that.
Yeah, I think that's good for tennis.
It looks sharp. I could work with that. So going once, going twice, 3 times, we're sold. You got your color palette there.
One
Kyle.
more court.
Oh, dude, killing us tonight. All right. Well, let's stay with the red and blue on this. Let's see what that looks like.
Oops. So red on the perimeter.
Now, do we get charged extra if we, for the 3 points and like, can we only go with 2 colors on this, or can you go with?
I don't know that. I would think we could do different things.
I think it would be cool to have like the 3-point arc, different color, maybe a different blue or something like that.
Something like that.
Where's your red?
You put,
There we go.
That'll work.
people work with that? All right, got a thumbs up from Devin. Brock, yep. Dan, yes, I can work with that. And a thumbs up from Matt. Okay, Mike, you're the only one that hasn't voted. Oh, thumbs up. All right, so there you go. Highly scientific.
Thank you.
I think that actually went pretty well, guys. Good job. We all picked that out pretty quickly. So.
Chris, there's a couple of comments and questions in the question and answer.
Yeah, so I think Emily, we sort of addressed this question. I think we have a darker blue with a lighter blue on the outside. So I think that answers your question. And Christy Bates' question is we are not available can't pay for the gray paint. So unfortunately, that's not going to work for us. Hopefully we'll be able to budget for the kitchen. They won't give us a hard time on that and make Mike and all those pickleball users happy. Mike, do I get free lessons from you on how to play pickleball? Can we arrange for you to teach all the commissioners? You're on mute. I think you did that on purpose. All right. So let's see here. We are on to our Wow, we are way behind. Our 8 o'clock agenda item, which is an update on field and court permit fee analysis. So because we're so behind, I'm not going to go too in depth in here. So let's just recap where we are in this process. We, have decided as a commission that we wanted to do a comprehensive review of the way that we determine the fees that we assign for permits for user groups to use our courts and fields. Commissioners were assigned to communities that were deemed in our market. This was the market communities that we took from the Budget Task Force report. Commissioners went out, talked to those communities to get information on how they have determined their fees. I did send a draft document of the sort of analysis to commissioners right before this meeting this evening. So obviously do not expect you all to read it, but it's a compilation of all the material that we've gathered to date, sort of try to summarize it, apply some of the methodologies that we've found from other communities to our example use case that I sent out to the commission. And then I proposed 4 different options for ways that we can structure our permit fees. And I've applied those options to 4 different current permit fees that we generate today. So you can kind of see what we pay, what those user groups pay today, and what they would pay under these 4 different options. Again, nothing set in stone here. It's just a starter for a conversation. More work needs to be done. The other aspect that I think we need to address as part of this analysis that I gleaned from the documentation that you all found was a prioritization methodology or list. So a lot of these communities had a prioritization list of user groups. So, youth groups got first choice, or schools got first choice, or recreation departments got first choice, schools second, user groups third, commercial operations fourth, so on and so forth. So we want to, I think, provide that as part of our recommendation. So what I would ask commissioners to do is find some time in the next, few days to review that document. Just get back to me with comments, suggestions, thoughts. And then we'll try and find some time in the next commission meeting to sort of talk through that a little bit more. And so that people would have by that point have had time to review what we've all collected and what I've tried to summarize in that document. And again, it's very rough draft. I haven't spent a ton of time on it, so forgive typos and all that sort of stuff, but just to sort of get the ball rolling. Is the commission okay with that approach? Or have any questions at this time that we want to cover on that topic? If you do, just raise your hand. I'm seeing no hands raised up. I do see a hand from Mike. Go ahead, Mike.
No, that was a accidental glitch. Sorry.
Okay, no problem, sir. All right. So seeing no comments or questions on that, we'll move on to our next agenda item, which is our Parks and Grounds reports and updates from our DPW director. Kyle, the floor is yours, sir.
Thank you. I'll be very brief tonight, given the meeting timeline. Budget-wise, we're about 1/3 of the way through the fiscal year, and we've spent about 31% of our personnel budget. We've done pretty well with overtime at this point. Typically, we would do more in the spring anyway because of getting fields ready and all of the pressures to kick off the spring seasons. As far as expenses go, we're a little over budget at this point. Three areas that we're really watching are vehicle maintenance and equipment maintenance. We're at 90% and 83% on those respectively, and we've overspent our town common expense line item. We had to replace the backflow valve for the irrigation system, which took up about $1,900 of the $2,500 in that budget line. So we're actually over that line by a little bit already. Overall, we're about 41% spent. So we'll just have to be careful, certainly the rest of the year. As far as work right now, the crew is busy doing cleanups in all the park and field areas
Kyle, can I just, a quick question? So just,
Yeah.
sorry to interrupt you, but what happens if, you know, come next spring, we have equipment issues and, you know, we don't have budget? What happens at that point?
Yeah, so it's, you know, it depends on the extent of the repairs and how much. Obviously, we're bottom line budgets, each of the department budgets. So we can overspend one line item as long as we underspend by the same amount other line items. So hopefully we can find that balance and work through that. Should it be something that's greater than that, then we'd have to go through other mechanics. And I haven't had to do it yet in Westford, so I don't know all the mechanics here, but there's a variety of options. The FinCom does have an emergency reserve that we could tap. I think the finance team can do a reappropriation from other budgets to support this budget if needed. I think there's some different actions the town could take should we need it.
Okay, so at this point, we don't see any issue to raise alarms or flags that we're not gonna be able to open the fields next spring because X equipment is busted. We'll be able
No,
to
definitely not.
hopefully deal with that.
Yeah, no, I don't foresee that at all.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
So a mild winter would help, I guess, huh?
What's that?
A mild winter would help.
Sure. That's always hoped for. Yeah, so the crew's busy doing field cleanups. They finished up with most of the sports seasons at this point, closing out irrigation systems at the beaches, the town facilities, the parks and fields, and getting everything ready for winter. And soon we'll be in getting all our equipment ready for the winter season. So I think I'll stop my report there and entertain any questions anyone has.
Now, last meeting you mentioned you anticipated putting up the shade structures just for a short period of time. What's the status of that?
Yeah, good question, Mike. I reached out again today to our contractor. The parts were delivered over a month ago. I still don't have an install date. I did get an email back this evening while this meeting was going on. He's going to check with his scheduler tomorrow and get back to me. So I unfortunately can't provide you a date with that just yet.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions for Kyle from the commission? Kyle, since we did just talk about the Jack Walsh color scheme, brief update. I've been able to, drive by it quite frequently. So I'm seeing progress on that project, but could you just give a brief update for those folks who don't live in the south end of town and don't know what's going on down there?
Yeah, definitely. Thank you, Chris. I should have mentioned that. So the contractor is hitting the project pretty hard.
Yeah.
As of today, they've taken the pavement off of the tennis courts, removed all of the fencing, removed the net posts, and have excavated out the existing gravel that was underneath the court. They're going to test that gravel to see if it meets current specs. And if it does, they're going to reuse the gravel and in preparation to prepare the courts, the refurbishment of the courts. Once they're done with that part of it, they're going to jump over to the basketball court, remove that pavement, and then excavate that material out. The material under the basketball court was a better quality, it looks like, a stonier gravel. So they'll do the same thing there, is they'll excavate the material that was there, test it, and make sure it passes current spec, and get subgrade prepared, put the gravel materials back in. And there's a tensar fabric. It's a woven or plastic kind of fabric that goes halfway in the gravel layer to provide additional stability for the sub base. Then they'll cap it with gravel, get it graded and compacted, And then they expect to get the binder course of pavement on this year. And then they would close up for the winter and come back in the spring, put the second course of pavement on, and then followed by the installation of the hoops and all of the nets and whatnot, and then culminate the project with the colors that we just talked about.
Kyle, if the gravel that's on site is suitable for use, did that get factored into the budget that they provided? I would imagine they would have budgeted for new gravel. So if they use the existing gravel, do we see a cost savings there?
We don't. In this project, it was a lump sum bid. So we don't actually know what they bid, quantity wise for each item. And, contractors will often do that. They'll bid, assuming that they can reuse gravels. So it's, really it's the bidder's risk. So we can't go back now and say, oh, you've got the good gravels. We want a discount. The bottom line is they need to provide gravels that meet spec. And, the fact that they, instead of purchasing gravels, they're removing it, testing it. They're handling it twice because they have to take it out, prepare subgrade, and then put it back in. So long way of saying no savings on the project.
Okay. What assurance do we get that the gravel is to spec? Do they provide some third-party testing that says, yep, this is good?
Yep, they're gonna third-party test it, and we're also we've already taken some samples in-house.
Okay.
And we're gonna shake out the gradations ourselves as well.
Cool. As of this morning, it looked like the pavement had been taken off the basketball court when I drove by it this morning, so that's good progress.
Yeah, they had, by this afternoon, they had most of the gravel out of the tennis courts.
Cool. All right. Any other questions on that project? I don't see any hands, so any other updates, Kyle, that you'd like to share?
Not at the moment, thank you.
I feel like maybe we should, I guess, we've already talked about the capital, that the capital requests, but you came a few weeks ago. So I guess, is there anything that we want to share with the commission regarding your presentation to the capital planning committee? I think they all, I'm on that committee, folks. It all seemed to, other than the questions that were raised about the artificial turf field and potentially, the concerns with doing that, I don't think there was any other questions for any of our other submissions, other than a question was asked about potentially not putting the lights at VFW and instead moving the lights to WA and lighting the softball field at WA. I did follow up on that question with the athletic director at WA. Given that the primary users of the lighted field at VFW are the men's over 30 leagues, and they play late into the evening, sometimes 11 o'clock at night. They also like to have a few drinks during the game and after the game. It did not seem like that was a suitable location for, having them do that at the academy was probably not going to work for both parties, both, people at the school and the adults. And the athletic director didn't see a lot of benefit of having lights on the softball field for his softball team. They don't play into the evening. However, if they do change the school start times, and that pushes, games later into the evening, maybe that might come a concern, but he didn't think it was worth the trade-off. So the only other comment that came up was, I don't know if Kyle, you were at the meeting, but the schools themselves are looking to replace the lights at Trustees Field. And a question was raised, would it make sense to bid out both projects at the same time? So have one vendor work on replacing the lights at both locations, and it sounded like that might be a slight cost savings if we apply that, if we follow that approach. So those are just the updates I have on the capital requests.
Yeah, I didn't hear that question, Chris, but Jeff and I have already talked about the possibility of doing that.
Okay, super. All right. Well, thank you, Kyle, for your update. Our next agenda item is recreation programming reports and updates from our rec director. Michelle, are you still with us?
Still here.
All right.
How's everyone doing tonight?
Super.
Good. Some recreation updates and reports. We are about 50% through our expense budget. And we are about 30% through collecting our revenues. So that's it on the budget part. I think one of the things, we're running winter programming, which are some new programming, which is great. Always looking to do that, bring in some more revenue. So we are running some newer programs this winter that we normally wouldn't run. So we're excited to see how those go and those fill up.
Michelle, what are some examples of those programs that you guys are thinking of?
So DJ Brock, he does our speed and agility program. He just keeps, it's great. He just keeps coming up with new winter programs. So there are a lot of track programs. Same with Nighthawks. We secured a spot in the NAB gym for us to be able to do those. So we typically don't run those programs in the winter. So we're excited to see how they go, or at least Nighthawks, maybe since COVID. So it's nice to see Alex back in the buildings. And then we have our first aid CPR that we run, and as well as our chess program. So those are kind of our vendor programs that we're running. And then the after school program is going well. We're 1 week into session 2. So we'll hopefully be seeing those revenues come in within the next 15 to 30 days.
And how did our numbers look for session 2? Are they continuing to trend upward versus session 2, the previous couple of years?
Typically session 2, numbers do seem to fall off a little bit. There's a lot more, the feedback we're getting is that there's a lot of families that have relatives that come in from out of town that are here through the holidays for different reasons. So a lot of them take their children out to stay home because they don't need the childcare. So, but we staff accordingly. So we obviously, if we aren't getting that revenue in, then obviously we watch our expenses as well. So it's typically what happens during this session. So, yeah.
But even with that normal downward trend, are our numbers still higher than they are for the same period last year? Are we still seeing numbers grow?
I haven't really compared them. It's the 1 week in. We still have people that continuously register, so I can't give you a definite answer on that right now.
Okay.
So we didn't really compare. So
any other updates?
Just using comparisons from session 1 at this point. The only other thing that I wanted to discuss tonight, and I think we mentioned it last meeting, that we wanted to come up with some kind of timeline for when we discuss rates. So I have a recommendation that I'd like to let the board know about. I think it would be prudent if we discussed rate increases for summer during our February meeting, and then discuss WPC rate increases at our June meeting. I spoke to my staff here and we felt that those two, that timeline would suit, our needs and getting enough data to present in February, and then be able to put out our summer rates in time. I think February gives us a good amount of time. And the same goes for the June meeting. If we get rates settled in by June, it gives us plenty of time to get that session 1 of after school out in plenty of time for parents to register.
Matt, question?
Yeah, if for whatever reason, if we ended up having to continue the rate conversation in February, would March give you enough time?
I'm sorry, every so often my computer cuts out and glitches. So would you mind repeating that, Matt?
Yeah, sure. If for whatever reason we had to continue the rate conversation from February till March, would March give you enough time to be able to affect the rates for the summer?
Yeah, I left a cushion in there. February didn't work. Definitely March would be, and depending on when, if March gets pushed off a little bit later towards mid-March. So, I would use the March meeting as a absolute definite deadline.
That's fair.
Yeah,
Thank you.
I agree.
All right. So what about like if we were going to do like the beach fee discussion, or is there any other programs like the programs like you run in the summertime, for example, so not WWBC, but destination exploration, or it's late. What's the other one that we
Kids
do?
Club, that's
Thank
okay.
you.
Those fall under, what would be shoot for February, but if we needed March, those are the programs that we're talking about.
Okay.
The
okay.
summer programs.
Summer
Yeah.
programs. Okay. If you wouldn't mind throwing that in an email,
Sure.
and then we can keep that in mind, and we'll share that with the commission. And I think that sounds
Sure.
reasonable. Any other questions for Michelle on that topic, commissioners? Don't see any other updates, Michelle?
No.
No? Okay, great. Well, thank you for coming up with that timeline. We'll going to need you, since you're the common, hopefully static entity here while chairs and commissioners rotate. You're gonna need to put that on your calendar and make sure that when I send out the agenda to you all for review, you say, oh, hey, Chris, March, we got to do this, or June, we've got to have this. So
Got it.
make sure that you put that on your own, put a reminder on your own calendar. So we all stay aware of that. And hopefully we can, do it on a regular cadence. All the commissioners will get used to it, and they'll start to remember, oh yeah, it's February. We got to talk about this. We got to do this review. And then, ideally, if you can have the data that we need, a couple weeks prior to the meeting, so commissioners can review. And I think, the last few times that we've done the analysis of the fees, the data that you've provided has been pretty good. So we'd want to, if we're doing Kids Club, right, we'd want to look at what are our competitors, and you've done that analysis. So we want to see what the market is charging, and that helps with us determining what the fees should be, right?
Yes,
All the stuff you did the last time we did this exercise.
absolutely.
So yeah, and it should be quicker now that we've done it once. Okay, good. Thank you, Michelle. Appreciate it.
You're welcome.
All right. Next agenda item, we have the approval of the October 2024 meeting minutes. Do we have any questions, comments on those minutes?
I have
Yes,
two,
yeah,
Chris.
go ahead.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Mike, raise your hand. Come
I
on.
know,
You're
I'm not
breaking
used to this. Sorry
protocol.
about that.
This is a very minor thing, but on the approval of the September minutes, it says it was 8-0-0. I believe Devin and I abstained because we weren't sitting members at that time.
I believe you are correct.
Not that it's a big deal, but
Hey, nope. When we take votes, that is a big deal. We want to get it right. So, Michelle, do you got that edit?
Yeah, Rose gets them. In fact,
Rose is here.
think
Okay, I didn't know if she.
Wrestling here.
Yeah.
I didn't see her you're on the as an attendee, Rose.
Yeah, she's under me.
Oh.
think, for some strange
Oh yeah, there was two of you. Okay, cool.
tree. I don't know, but she's
All right. As long as she's getting that. And then, okay, go ahead, Mike. You have some
I
edits?
have two locations where your last name was spelled with one T instead of two T's.
Oh,
Uh,
thank you, sir, for catching that.
Section C. It's about halfway through the paragraph. The sentence starts off, Commission Chair Barrett said, next steps might require Barrett's one T.
Yes, I see that. Thank you.
Okay. And the other place was on the last page, item J, second line,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
same,
Okay,
misspell.
excellent. Thank you.
That's it.
Excellent. Thanks, Mike. Any other comments? All right, no. Gonna lower your hand, Mike. Okay. Do I have a motion to approve? Oh, Mike again, hand. Go for it. No? All right. So do I have a motion to approve? Anybody want to make a motion to approve the minutes
Motion to approve the minutes
as amended?
as amended.
As amended. All right. If we got a motion from Matt, do I have a second on that?
I'll
Second.
second it.
Oh,
All right. Oh, gets that. I'll give it to Mike.
Yep.
All right. Any discussion on the motion? See any? All right. Roll call here. Mike.
Yeah, yay.
All right. Dan.
aye.
Matt.
Aye.
Devin.
Aye.
Brock.
Aye.
And I'm also an aye. So the motion carries unanimously. Thank you, everyone. All right. Let's see here. We're getting towards the end, folks. Let's see. All right, we have old/new business. Does anybody have anything that they need to bring up this evening? I'm seeing nothing. All right. Very good. We can move on to the final item, I believe is. Well, why don't we actually look at our calendars for the next meeting before we adjourn. So the next Monday here would be
The second.
the 2nd. How does that work for people?
I'm not available.
All right, that's one out. How's everybody else doing?
Good there. Hold on.
I'm good.
What's that?
Let's see here.
And Chris, just as a point of information for the commission, the first CPC meeting will be the next night on the 3rd.
Okay, and that's your general like progress. You hear all the proposed projects, right?
Yeah, exactly. I think we hear the projects, but without the participants that submitted them, we kind of go over them on our own.
Okay.
Second works for me.
So 2nd works for everybody except for Brock. Just as a would the 4th, I know it's a Wednesday. Would that work for folks? No, not for you. All right. Thursday, the 5th.
If it's virtual, maybe.
Maybe Thursday. Okay. All right. And Brock, you're a definite no-go on the 2nd, huh?
Definite no-go.
Oh, that's a bummer. Okay.
Is the following Monday too late, the 9th, or does that not work for some people as well?
That's gonna be potentially tough for me. No, I mean, Brock, can you do the 9th?
I can.
So would the 9th work for everybody?
Yes.
Okay. All right, well, why don't we go with the 9th? And
I can't make the 9th, I'm sorry.
oh, man. We're never gonna get everybody. So I guess why don't we just stay with tradition? We'll stay with the first Monday then. I mean, unless, yeah, I don't think going to the 16th is gonna work, right? Does anybody want to go all the way to the 16th?
Not really.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right.
Should plans change, I'll definitely make it, but as of right now, it's not possible.
Okay. I mean, it is going to be virtual, so You
Right.
know, if for some reason you can jump on for even a little bit, that'd be great. All right, so let's tentatively say December 2nd. It will be virtual. Probably do it at 7 again, if that's okay with folks. I just think it's easier for the public if we're gonna, broadcast. We want, input that the 7th is a little easier than 6:30 for some people, dinner hour and all that. Sound good? All right. All right. So our last item is to adjourn. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
I make a motion to adjourn tonight's meeting.
All right. Thank you, Brock. Do I have a second?
I'll
Devin, get on the board. Devin, get on the board. Come on.
I'll second the motion.
There he
adjourn
is.
the meeting.
Thank you, sir. All right. All those in favor, Mike,
Aye.
Devin,
Aye.
Matt,
Aye.
Brock,
Aye.
Dan,
Aye.
and I'm also an aye. Motion carries. We are adjourned. Thank you very much, Westford, for all of you who stayed with us this evening, and look forward to potentially having you join our next meeting on December 2nd. We'll talk about artificial turf fields. Good times. Thank you all for staff for staying late. Appreciate your time as always. Have a good evening.
Good night,
Thank you,
everyone.
Chris.
Good night.
Good night.